G'day guys, Jack and Nick here from the Unaffected podcast, and today we have Jake Parker on as our guest.
Jake's mum Jane passed away last year after a 2.5-year battle with MND. Stay tuned as we chat to Jake about his decision to put his life largely on hold to become his mum's primary carer.
We hear Jake's perspective on how he and his mum face the challenges of her MND and his decision to run a marathon in her honour. G'day guys, welcome to The Unaffected, the podcast bringing you the stories of those affected by a loved one's disability. We are brought to you by CareMatch, so search for those guys on Facebook via CareMatch or CareMatch_Australia on Instagram for all your care needs. I'm Jack, with me as always is Nick, and today we have our guest Jake Parker.
Last year, 31-year-old Jake Parker's mum Jane lost her battle with Motor Neurone Disease, or MND. MND is actually the collective name for a group of diseases that affect the motor nerves that controls muscle activity and things like walking, speaking, breathing, and swallowing. Jake's mum Jane had amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, which would be the condition most people associate with MND. You may remember the Ice Bucket Challenge that went viral a few years ago now? Well, that was in the bid to raise awareness about ALS. This condition involves progressive systemic muscle weakness ending in paralysis, often starting in the arms and legs and eventually causing organ failure. There is currently no known cure or effective treatment for ALS, with people on average surviving 2 to 5 years after diagnosis. Jane was 65 when she passed away, around 2.5 years after her initial symptoms. Following Jane's diagnosis, Jake chose to put his university studies and life largely on hold to become his mum's full-time carer, and he's been good enough to come in and tell us about his experience. So Jake, welcome, and thank you for coming in to have a chat.
Thank you very much, guys. I've been more close than the borders, so it's good to open up a little bit with you guys. Cheers.
To start off, mate, tell us a little bit about where you and your mum were at in your lives when she first started experiencing the first symptoms, and do you want to tell us a little about what they were?
Yeah, no worries. So I'll start with her first because her life, she was killing it, hey. She was a big thing in the trivia game, so she used to pay like 3 times a week. She was one of the OG Uber drivers, which at the age of like 64, she tried to get back into the workforce and no one would give her a crack for one reason or another. But Uber, they were all for it. So she used to drive, 10, 15 hours a week, was her own boss, could do her own times, and just loved it. Also, she lived 1 block away from the beach, which is pretty cool. She moved there in 2015. Daniel and I went halves in an apartment for her. So she was flying. Yeah, and I was just stoked for her. We always sort of worried about mum growing up because we were very close. So yeah, really stoked for her. Myself, middle-aged, let's call it, mature-aged, maybe, that's questionable. Mature-aged student, undergrad exercise science at Southern Cross University. I was in my 3rd year, so 2017, and I remember it pretty vividly. Mum's like, my foot sort of has stopped working. And I'm like, have you stretched? I was like, maybe you got pins and needles or something. Oh, yeah, righto. And anyway, it sort of started from there. So there is a long rabbit hole to get to diagnosis. There was a lot of scans, spine scans, brain scans, everything. And she always, one thing I'll never forget, from day dot, like from that right foot becoming weaker, she always said, I think it's that MND thing. And I was like, nah, not you. Don't worry about it. Let's just sort it out. Maybe go to a physio, like they'll do your tests and then we'll go from there. And that was where it started, and it just snowballed on there until diagnosis sort of like,
So how long was it from the time of her first symptoms to the diagnosis?
like I'd say, so part of the care she got was a bit questionable in the fact they don't give strong diagnoses. Depends who the neuro is, I think. But all mum got was what was called assumed MND, which sucks when you don't get anyone that's been through health issues that they know something's up, but they don't know what to call it. The anxiety goes through the roof, mate.
100%.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
So in terms of getting that hard diagnosis, that came, we all knew the writing was on the wall, but because they rule out everything.
Yeah.
So I know vividly it was August, I looked at it today, so August 2018, we went to Sydney to see the leading neuro in Australia. We were going to get on a trial, or it was mum's hope, we were going to get on a trial and, we'll just try our best. And that's when I started to realise, this isn't good. So he's obviously works a lot with M&D patients, and he just said, we're like, look, we're here to see if we can get on this copper trial. And he's like, oh, didn't you hear? And I'm like, no, what? He's like, oh, we had liver complications with that trial, so we've ceased it. I was like, mate, you could have told us. Like, mum was, I'm going to say, not wheelchair bound, but walker.
Yeah.
And for him to say that, he said, oh, but don't worry, I can officially diagnose ALS. Cheers. Yeah.
So what was that in getting the diagnosis? I guess finally you have an answer.
Yeah.
But then the other side of it is then you know what the answer is and how devastating it is.
Yeah.
What sort of
See,
reaction was
we
that?
were a weird family in that, like, we were so tight and we never sort of said lovey-dovey things like, oh, I love you. Like, I just knew what had to be done. I never remember crying about it because it is what it is.
It's going to move on.
Yeah, as you know. Like, I'm sure mum did, but mum was strong as an ox.
Yeah.
Like, she wasn't an emotional character, which helped because I am. But even throughout, you got a job to do. So you can't let it get to you. It's not until after everything happens you look back and you're like, oh Jesus. But nothing really changed. The love was always there.
Yeah.
Not that it would ever be a relief getting a diagnosis that you knew the long-term implications of, but was there a sense of closure, I suppose, that, like the old saying, better the devil you know than the one you don't, when you got the diagnosis definitively?
Yeah, like, it sucked, and I was like, it was all about reassurance then. So I remember saying to her, look, you've got a lot to worry about, but one thing you never have to worry about, love, is I'm here. Like, I'm not going anywhere, nothing else. I couldn't care less about anything else. Like, you're it. And, I received, and my brother received a lot of compliments because we all played our part. But one of the best, not sort of compliments we got, but one of the best affirmations of doing the right thing came from one of the friends from Sydney. He called me after everything happened and said, Jake, I can't believe what you and your brother did. And I'm like, oh, look, with all due respect, you don't know us all that great. Like, this was from Sydney, so mum's life before us.
Yep.
And she's like, oh no, I remember calling your mum like in tears saying, look, I'll come up, I'll sort out like aged care, we can look around, we can go to different neuros, we can get a second opinion. And mum just said to her, oh no, I've got Jake and Daniel, I've got my boys. Like, that was epic.
Yeah.
So the fact she didn't have to worry about that
And knowing that she confidently said, like, I don't need that. Like, she knew she had you guys.
Huge. So, and then, I mean, moving forward, I always prepare for the worst. So we had all the equipment, big, scary things. And I'm like, Mum, this isn't, I'm going to be your hoist. Like, this isn't standard practice for us, but it's just in case, because, you know, life happens and things happen. Just in case something bad happens to me, we got to get you covered.
Yeah.
So all this equipment, it's not to scare you. It's just in case.
Be prepared.
Yeah. And that's where I lent on a lot of people. My brother was a champion, so he it wasn't just me taking care of her. So he used to do the 10, 12-hour days, and then like hard yakka civil, and then just come over, spend time with her. Not because we had to, not because it's the right thing to do, just because we wanted to. That was it. I mean, yeah.
How familiar were you with M&D? Like, you know enough about it to know when you got that diagnosis what it meant?
Yeah. So Neil Danaher, which is like the pioneer, he's probably the face of M&D in Australia. I watched a couple of footy games. I think I watched the third one, the Big Freeze, and yeah. So I knew it was something you didn't want, but I also knew not many people could get it. So that was. I don't know. Yeah. Especially the hardest thing about the diagnosis was obviously there's risk factors for a lot of diseases and cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, all that stuff. You can look at your diet potentially. You can look at your physical activity, participation, and potentially alter those to limit your risk of getting those diseases later in life. For M&D, it's nothing. It's not even age. It's not sex. It's just you're just as likely as mum to get it. I'm a bit at an increased risk, obviously, with that direct family history, but the neuro said it was sporadic mums, but I don't know. I got some trust issues, so one day I'll get a test, but that's a story for another day.
Yeah. Do you think understanding once you had the definitive diagnosis, knowing that what the future looked like and that your days with your mum were limited, did wanting to make the most of those limited days play into wanting to take on that role as her carer?
Yeah. So I don't know how. So in the early going, when I moved in, Daniel didn't sleep there much. He used to, later on when I used to fill my cup up, literally and metaphorically, on like a Saturday just to get away, I used to tag him in and he used to take care of mum on the Saturday nights. I don't reckon I could have slept away from her. Like that's how full on the withdrawal anxiety or the separation anxiety was. So yeah, I definitely knew at the time when I did placement, mum was still semi-independent, so I knew she could handle it. But yeah, look, to say I enjoyed placement would be a bit of a lie. I was just missing out on. I knew what was precious time.
Yeah.
And also a pretty big misconception is the average time is like 2.2 years diagnosis, but there are people a lot less and a lot longer. Yeah. So I'm pretty sure like Neil Danaher's in his 9th year diagnosed and still like standing, being able to weight bear. So I didn't know what to expect. I'll tell you, the first time I thought, oh, this is a doozy, was I went to Adelaide to go to the conference, the ALS conference. They do it annually. It was in Adelaide in August 2018. Mum drove me to the airport, so she was obviously able to do things back then. And the very first speaker, they obviously discuss all the research and stuff, but you know, there's hope. That's cool for a cure, but there's a lot. But the first speaker was someone living with it, and he's come out, he's rolled out, and just this machine starts talking, and his mouth's not even moving. He's just looking at what they call eye gaze machine.
Yep.
And he just said, I hate my life. I've ruined my family's life. Like, this is not humane. What's happening to my body? It's turned me to an evil person that I never used to be. You know, a lot of people look at the physical and they just don't quite understand the mental consequences of MND. I never disclosed that to Mum. She didn't need to know. We were on our own journey. And that's the thing. Everyone presents differently.
Yep.
Everyone's got different time frames. We know our destination, but the journey is far from complete. Let's just ride the wave as best we can. She always used to say, laugh more than you cry. And I just remember to her, I said, look, I didn't ask her for much. Comfort was king. That was number one for Daniel and I. Like, whatever made her more comfortable, like, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
All I said to her is, I go, Mum, I know you're tough as boots. I just need you not to cry. Like, I can't do it. And she just gave me the thumbs up. Her thumb was one of the last things to go, apart from a smile. So those two things, I'll go to the end. I think that was, I gave her a task she knew and I knew she could complete, which is big for, you know, as you know, self-efficacy. You want to set
definitely
a realistic goal.
Yep.
So behind closed doors, what emotional toll did your mum's condition have on you, and did you ever talk to her about that?
Oh, honestly, when you're in the trench, like, this is hand on my heart, when you're in the trench, you don't have time.
Yeah.
I didn't allow myself to cry myself to sleep because I don't want to talk about the bad stuff, but she was the 24/7 person in my life. I'm a big believer everyone has that one person in their life they chuck away 24 hours of their day to look after. So there was always something on my mind. There was always something to do. If anything, it comforted my mental anguish or angst, if you want to call it. It comforted it because I knew that's exactly where I had to be. As a mature age student, you know, you're always wondering what the future is going to hold. And it used to get to me. Like,
Looking too far ahead into the future, did you?
Yeah.
Am I doing the right thing with what I'm doing? And
Whereas this kind of, I suppose, brought your focus back into the now.
Day.
Like,
what
not
the hell is today gonna bring? Like, we used to have little funerals for body parts that didn't work. Like, she used to type. When I say it was type, but she used to say, left big toes now gone. So I used to like do a little ceremony and say, "Ta-da! Anyone got some final last words?" And Mum used to say, "Goodbye." What's that? I mean, but so that was it. It taught me to live in the moment. But I was fortunate that Daniel had the mortgage. That's why he had to work.
Yeah,
I didn't. I was the student. I didn't have a relationship commitment or any kids. It was just very, very convenient. We made the best out of a pretty tragic situation.
Sure.
Yeah, it was a pretty small apartment. Yeah, it was big enough for us. So but no, all in all, it was probably good for my mental health.
Yeah.
Whether that's selfish or not, I don't think so. But
No, I don't think so. As you progressed in the role as your mum's carer, did you still feel like you had her to support you through what you were going with?
Yeah, her just being alive was my support. I know that's heavy, but that's really it. As I said, Mum wasn't the emotional type, but yeah, her just being there was all the support I needed.
Yeah, she was still your mum.
Yeah, I think she was very, very good. Even one of the close friends from school did a eulogy for her, and they're like, look, you were really cool to grow up with, but you were born to be the boy's mum.
Yeah.
Like huge. So
I suppose you'd told her what you needed from her, and by the sounds of it, she did a pretty good job of not, as heavy as the situation as she was facing, not breaking down in front of you every day.
Yeah.
That's her supporting you, like
Yeah.
giving you what you need in the situation to help her. So,
100%. A lot of people will say stuff in life, and it's the actions that count, and definitely her actions spoke louder than her words. That's all I needed from her was laughter and smiling and the occasional blow up, or when you get frustrated, I'm the one, or, you know, as long as you don't let it build up inside your head without expelling it to one of us. Yep. But I don't think she was a person like that. You know, she was, as I said, she was tough and old school. So I don't think that was an issue.
Was there a definitive line between when you were acting, when you were Jake the son, and when you were Jake the carer, or did that line become more blurred as time went on?
Oh yeah, blurred as. It was. I just think it was what I had to do.
And do you think that might have served it well, that then your mum knew you better anyway, but then it was very clear that you were there not out of obligation, but because you wanted to spend as much time with your mum as you could?
Yeah, I couldn't see anyone else. Well, I didn't want to see anyone else to do the things that I was doing. That would have made her feel very uncomfortable. She wasn't keen on a support worker. We did enlist one once she got NDIS funding 2 months before the cutoff date, before her birthday. Like, oh God, that day was like the most relief, because I knew financially for the rest of her life we're sorted.
After,
that was huge.
Yeah. So all of this stuff, obviously, just touched on, is pretty heavy, pretty hard hitting. Did you ever get professional help mentally, or?
After she passed, I did, because I've got this like mindset of, oh no, there's always someone worse off, and that was I was seeing it. I remember at the time and even for my own psyche at Strides doing placement, and I thought, I never said this to Mum because why? I think it's a waste of breath. But anyway, I just remember thinking at that stage, there's a lot worse people that are doing it tougher than Mum is at the moment. So that sort of realigned me with, all right, let's live in the now. It could be worse. Yeah. And I always had that for every day. I thought I could be Mum.
Yeah.
So
put your problems aside, because
And then we had we might touch on it, but we had a few issues with the professional care we got, especially. So after she passed, I had a couple of sessions with a psych, and she was cool. It was just a pretty much hour bitch fest of me
just trying to deal with some of the anger towards the care that you thought could have been better.
Yeah, like, I don't know, I got a saying, and this came before Mum got sick, but like, keep your expectations low. It's just a good way to live, because as soon as you get your expectations high and that doesn't happen, what you expect, you're going to feel worse off for it.
Yeah.
So going in, I didn't expect much help, but I did think, these guys, I know what they were getting paid. So I'm like, they're getting paid good coin, Mum. They're going to look after us. So there was always something on the go. As you mentioned in your intro, no treatment. So what do? It's just equipment.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, it's different with spinal cord injury, as it's always progressing, deteriorating worse. It's not, all right, this is it.
Yeah.
That adjustment period, it's tough, but you sort of,
then
I'd like to think you can always improve.
Yep.
You know, this is the worst it's going to get.
Yep.
But you build your strength up. You can one day achieve some pretty amazing things.
Yeah.
With Mum, that wasn't even in my mindset. It was, this is just going to get worse from here. So time is of the essence. Yeah. And I really enjoyed being mum's advocate. So when you can't talk, you need someone with a loud voice, and I'm your man. Like, let's go. So yeah, I was geeing up all sorts of things, equipment, and that's why I did the charity. They were actually really good. But I remember one of the nurses, lead nurse, cool. Righto, she said, pretty much early on, diagnosis. Righto, Jane, this is what you need. You need a peg inserted in your stomach. You need to bank your voice. You need like a CPAP machine, everything. And mum was all right back then. Like, don't put that on her.
Yeah.
And mum's like,
yet.
oh, no, I'm all right. And I could tell in her voice, and she said this to a lot of people, so it obviously hurt her. That's why I'm sharing it. But she said, oh, no, we'll call when we need you. The nurse should have known that.
Yeah.
We're going to call.
Yeah.
Just not now.
Yeah.
We don't need all that stuff.
The
Yeah.
reminder of what's to come. Like, it's already in the back of
Yeah.
your mind. You don't need it brought to the forefront.
Mate, it probably came from a good heart, because she was just, I don't know.
Trying to prepare yous.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I got no idea. But I tell you what it did do. It put mum on a mindset of she wasn't into it. She we had no voice banking. It was none of that. So anyway, they were the first people I went through to try to get equipment when we needed it. And I called her. Hey, I'm Jake, Jane's son. We're just after a cough assist machine, please. Oh, Jane. Like, yeah. She's diagnosed, like, whatever it was, 4 months ago. Oh, she wants our help.
Oh, no.
And look, I'm a bit biased. Like, she probably didn't say it in that tone. I'm just a bit salty about it. That's all. But, yeah. And I said, yeah, we do. Can you help us, or am I calling someone else? Like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, and mum's there, like, thumbs up to me. And I'm like, yeah. And I never met her, mate. To this day, I've never seen her.
Yeah.
So, and then that morphed into, righto, mum, it's me and you.
Yeah.
Like, we got the charity I did the fun run for, which we'll talk about later. They were there. They were awesome. They were, I need this bed. Righto, tomorrow it's coming. But we didn't go through, we never saw nurses or anything like that, neurologists ever again from diagnosis. We just wanted to live our own life as best we could.
Absolutely.
That was it. So I just said, yeah, mum, we're in the trenches here, but we don't need them. Like, until there's something I can't do that a nurse can, which is a lot, I'll call them. But we met a nurse once, mate. Like, there are a lot of people with MND doing it a lot tougher. I never said this to mum because it's not comforting. They're doing it a lot tougher than what mum did. And that disconnect from the allied health as to our care, mine and Daniel's and Lorraine's and the work girls and the charity, there was a massive disconnect there.
Yeah.
That, you know.
Because I suppose you're personally invested.
Yeah, 100%.
It's your mum.
100%.
I think the other thing to think about there is that have a bit of empathy. Like, things are going to frustrate you, and your mum and you were going through a heavy situation. So even if you'd said something that made that lady a little bit butthurt, have a bit of empathy and know that something that they might say is adding to a mountain of things on your mind that you're dealing with at that moment. Yeah. Can they just keep that one comment to themselves? Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. That was the stuff I was talking to the psych about. So you can tell.
Definitely.
That hour went very quickly. But I just wanted her to have the best care. And if I knew she wasn't getting it, trouble.
Yeah.
Okay, mate. Tell us about 42 for Jane and what that meant to you to be able to contribute to the cause.
That was just, so I've never been married or my partner's never given birth. So I'd say they're probably the two best days of your life.
Yep.
Is it?
Definitely. Well, I think...
You had to say yes.
Yeah.
Say it's about the marriage. No, yeah, definitely. Nothing can compare to seeing your kid come into the world.
Yeah. Beautiful. one day I'll get there. But
Don't rush.
no, I'm not. I'm living my best. Don't worry.
Good.
Nearly cracked 90 the other day on the golf course. But anyway. Yeah, so that day was just one day that I'll never forget. It was my number one special day because Mum might not have been with us, but she was on my shoulder the whole way. That was just the tip of the iceberg, but so as you know, icebergs are pretty deep and there's a lot that goes into an iceberg to make it what
Just
it
quickly,
is.
for those listening, do you want to tell us quickly what the 42 for Jane was?
Oh, a marathon. So I decided, well, to deal with the everyday stresses of whatever was coming while Mum was around, I started running, which I don't know why I did. I just did. And it helped because I love music. I remember saying to Mum, quoting Vance Joy, I said, "Mum, your mess is mine. Like, I'm here." And she's like, "What?" And then I played the song and she's like, "Oh, okay." But yeah, so I started running because it just cleared my head. But instead of getting like PBs and trying to work on my sprints, I was worried about returning to Mum because I was worried she was going to be itchy and no one would itch her. So that's how you get a PB. If you want to work on your sprinting time,
Come up with better motivation.
Oh, it was unreal, hey. So anyway, I just started running more than doing weights.
Yep.
And then I did my first half marathon at the Gold Coast one. And it's funny because if you know me and if you're listening to this and then you know me, you know I'm a bit forgetful. So I was ready to go for the next day marathon. And Mum's like, this is pretty much just before I'm going to sleep. She's like, "Have you checked the date, Jake?" I was like, yeah, it's tomorrow. She goes, "Nah, check it." It was on Sunday. So it was 2 days' time. But I go, "Oh, thank God. What am I going to do without you?" She goes, "Oh." She just shook her head. So, yeah, that was good. That was my first taste of it. And it also gave me something to talk about with Mum. Rather than, we never talked about, I don't know, Nick, like you and your family, did you talk about spinal research? And
When things come up, it's sort of, I mean, it's not a taboo topic, but I mean, unless something needs to be spoken about, there's no point. I mean, you still just talk about anything you can really, is make it as normal as possible without just making the disability what you are.
Yeah, exactly. So I was the same. We never spoke about it. So I used to tell her, what route I went, and then I'd do a little, couple laps in the pool, like who was down at the pool. If no one was down there, I'd make it up. I'd be like, "Oh yeah, Sandy was down there," and "Oh, cool, how were they?" Like, she was just very interested.
Yep.
Which is awesome. But yeah, so smashed out the half, which was like this feeling of euphoria that I've never got. That last K was just so emotional because that was well and truly in the trench there. That was 2019, 6 months prior to passing away. So I could have easily not done it. That was the motivation. Could have easily not done it. I remember going there, quickly running back, and that started it. I thought, hang on, what a great way to like just honour Mum. And then it grew from there. I went to the last night I spent away from her, actually, I did the Points of Pinnacle in Tassie 2 months prior to passing away. And I wasn't there for 24 hours. I was there for 18 hours. It was in and out. It was a bit disappointing because the hill, the ice had frozen, so the buses couldn't get to the top.
Yeah.
I had this thing in preparation. I wanted to feel something like I've never felt before, like Mum does.
Yeah.
That's weird, but it is what it is. So I didn't do any hill sprints. I ran on the flats. But I thought, yeah, this will be good. And I rock up and they're like, "Oh, you can't do it." I was like, yeah, I'm not surprised. Sweet. Sweet. But I remember getting back the next morning and she's like, she typed again. She's like, I don't know if I can like live without you at night anymore. Like Dana did a fantastic job, I'm sure, but it was just that comfort thing. Like I talked about, comfort was king. I said, look, I've got a festival on the 28th of December, Rufus are playing, and I'm not missing that. But after that, my book is open for you. My schedule's clear. And that was it. So it was just all about that reassurance, and the stuff I did on social media was reassuring her.
Yeah.
That's it. She wasn't a burden. Far from it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, and I told her, like, it's different when you know someone's going to die. So I told her, I said, I know you don't want limelight, but I'm giving it to you. Like, once you're gone, the first marathon that's available, hopefully, I thought the Gold Coast one. She passed like a month before COVID hit. I said, people are going to remember your name, like Jane. It's not about me. It's not mum. It's Jane. You're a person.
Yeah.
You're not a sufferer anymore. And then it just blew up. So I just no wasn't an option, and it was COVID at the time. So like anything, you have no's. The videographer was out. He said, "Nah, COVID." The jerseys couldn't get made because it was from China, so can't do that. The marathon's cancelled, but I'm sure you remember that the world was on ice, but one of the 4 reasons was exercise. Thank you. That's all I need.
That'll do.
Yeah, I'll do. And then we just made it happen. I found a few people, you just keep trying. You gotta keep pushing past. There was no quitting. Never give up's their motto. So I organised the track, and it was really cool because we, as I said, we grew up in Mudgeeraba, the same house. So I actually ran past that, started at Rabina, ran through the old house, all the old neighbours were there, through Mudgee, Firth Park Fields, up past her apartment where she lived her final days, up to Burleigh Hill.
Yeah. So you made the track was actually full of meaningful.
Yeah. And the people who stopped off, and just there was one bloke or 2 people that were on bikes that knew mum they were my boys. Knew mum for I think one guy met her when he was like 4 and the other guy 15. So they were hydrating me and whatnot. And then it was just special. I think the world craved a bit of warmth. The world was, as I said, on ice. So I don't know if there were many more motivated people than me that day, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely.
And you raised a fair bit of money, didn't you, for a charity?
Yeah, it just blew up. I remember thinking, what if?
Yeah.
What if I only raised 500? So I knew it had to be cut through. And I mean, I don't know, I was pretty full on with some of the words I said, but it was all from the heart. And it just, blew up. Like 3rd in Australia she was.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was unreal.
I think as important as the money that those types of events raise as well, you raised so much awareness through the media presence it's had, which
100%.
to put the pressure on the powers that be to research things like this that affect people, you need public awareness, because for most people, unfortunately, until they're affected by it personally, it's not on their radar. So things like that is what are needed to draw that into people's focus.
Yeah, I agree. And sort of the main motivating factor for me was the equipment. So like raising money and awareness was awesome, but I just didn't want to raise money for research. If that, as you said, if that cure is to come, it's going to be for some pretty heavy hitters. Governments, some massive stuff. No, I wanted to make like a tangible difference to someone, especially Queensland, because Mum was a Queenslander, even though she was born in New South Wales. I just wanted to help out, especially those that weren't eligible for the NDIS.
Yeah.
Like how they're living, I don't know. But we raised 12,800. We donated a bunch of self-funded equipment that we paid for. that we didn't get through the NDIS, so that was good. And they were just proud as punch. M&D Queensland, they obviously they deal with, that's all their clientele is. But I remember after she passed, I got a really nice handwritten like letter, and it was just said like specific things too that we'd gone through, and I was like, yeah, you guys are the real deal. Like, let's go. I gotcha. And they're like, oh no, like we can't. The marathon's not going, but they needed it. So
I think another thing it would have done is show other people out there that are going through the similar thing, that they're not alone, that there is other people out there dealing with something similar, and they know what it's like, that there is, someone else out there that'll do these things, that'll go through the hard yards to help out others, and that they're not the only ones going through that.
Yeah, I agree. There was something burning in me to just show people, no matter, how tough it is, you can find beauty in the struggle. There's absolutely, beauty in the struggle if you look hard enough. And I wanted her to be portrayed as, her face was smiling, she was happy, she had no equipment attached to her, no one needed to see any of that stuff. This was Jane, the human. I'm a bit biased. I think I did it more for raising awareness for my mum, come to think of it. Yeah.
That's fine.
But, just don't get M&D if you can help it.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So looking to the now and the future a little bit, you're now a support worker for other people with disabilities. Tell us why you chose to stay in that field.
Yeah. I love my job. So I remember my old manager at retail said there's 3 things that are going to keep you in a job, Jake. You're either going to like what you do, you're going to like what you do it for, or you're going to like the people in it. I thought, oh yeah, righto. Like I like the people at retail, so that was fine. But that sort of stuck with me. And right now I'm ticking, I'm not just liking those 3, I'm loving those 3. So there's always someone worse off, still to this day. And I'm just happy. I don't know if I do it more I hate the word or the term participant. Mum wasn't a participant, she's a person. But anyway, it's not only just helping them, it's the family.
Yeah.
And that's what I like. They helped. Tony was my first, and I asked if it's all right if I can use his name, and he said, yeah, lad. So,
because you said before yourself that you didn't want to go away or you didn't really want to employ formal support's help.
Yeah.
Because you worry about the kind of care that they're going to give to your family member when you're not there.
Yeah.
So if they can see people as invested as I see you involved, especially with Tony, it's so comforting for them.
Yeah.
I know that as well. Like I live away from my family. They live down in Albury and I'm up on the Gold Coast. And one of the things they've said to me as well, knowing that, because I've got good care workers with me, them knowing that I'm sort of well looked after, that I'm not just going to be left in bed with no one coming to look after me, whatever it is, that makes them a lot more peace of mind.
Yeah, it's huge. But so I met Tony, and I remember the first time I met him, it's such a classic story. I'm like, hey mate, he's like, hey lad, how are you? I go, I'm just winging it. No idea what I'm about to walk into. The brief I got was a bloke that just wants to hang out. Yeah, righto. He's like, yeah, I want to build up my leg strength. I go to the gym. I go, yeah, righto. And I just said to him, mate, just to be completely honest, my life's a bit of a shit show at the moment, and I'm sure yours is too. But once we leave these doors, it's just good vibes, all right? Yeah, lad, no worries. We'll build up my leg strength and it will be sweet. And what he did in terms of help me throughout the process, he can't physically do the things he used to do, but his family know this. I've told them, he takes care of me more than I take care of him. But there's also others. I met, so there was him 2 days a week, because I said to Mum, I'm here, but I need a foot in the employment door, because I'm not I'm not going to be in the frame of mind to sell myself once you're gone.
Yeah.
So I needed to secure something. And then on a weekend, I met a beautiful man named Tyson, who's just a really good friend. He was there at Mum's funeral, and we go to concerts, and yeah, he was at my 30th, and he was part of 42 for Jane at one of the stops, and his family. I remember like just breaking down after she had passed, and I went there. Like, that's not standard practice, but they were around the corner. They lived around the corner, so they were there. They took me in, and we had a laugh. And then it just grew. I just got tired too, so I wasn't going into too much, but I wasn't getting much sleep while I was supporting her. But yeah, I think what I was going through made the families at ease.
Oh, definitely. I think the people who are most, I suppose, not cut out for roles as a support worker are people who've been through it with a family member, because you know the concerns that the family has. You know a little bit about the toll that disability takes on the individual with the disability.
Yeah.
So you can offer insights and I think comfort and support that other people who they might have been a support worker for 30 years, but they haven't been as invested because it hasn't been affecting them, I suppose, personally through their family.
Yeah. Yeah.
What direction do you think your life may have taken in an alternate universe without your mum's diagnosis?
I don't know what I would have done. Well, I wouldn't be here, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have done the 42 for Jane.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have grown as a person as much. Like, she's taught me so much without verbally telling me, like, advice and stuff like that. It's hard. I don't really go there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perspective's such a massive thing, and it's something that I think prior to working at Making Strides, I got bogged down in all these first world problems that all of us entitled generation, whatever we are, enjoy. But then working with all the people I do, I kind of realise like all this trivial shit that I used to worry about is actually not important. I'm so lucky. And then I almost swung in the opposite way, and I started getting really frustrated with my mates and stuff when they're worried about money or a car or their missus or just something stupid. And I was like, you could be in a wheelchair, like you could have a diagnosis of MND.
Yeah.
But then some of my clients are actually the ones who said, yeah, that is true, and you should always search for a more positive perspective. But Jack, you have to remember that if someone hasn't been through stronger adversity than whatever is in front of them right now, that's going to seem like the end of the world to them.
Yep.
So don't be too harsh on them. So these days I take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes I still judge them.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, everyone goes through tough times. It's just a forever changing continuum. Like, what Nick, you're tough to what everyday hardworking Australians tough is. It's
I think
completely different, but it's still tough to them, mate. So you got to respect that.
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways, I'm actually happier now than beforehand. Obviously, the physical side of it isn't, but mentally sort of putting things in perspective and having a different outlook on life.
That's
There's
huge.
definitely things that are better now. Obviously, there's things that are worse, but there's definitely things that are better now.
Mindset is sort of everything. It doesn't matter what gets taken away. How you approach it does make that a little bit better.
Yeah.
That's what you work on. Just hope today is better than yesterday. If you're struggling out there, that's all you can do.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later, you're going to turn that hope into like action.
Yeah.
And then you turn it into better rather than just hoping. Hoping's important, but that's like the first step.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for someone going through a similar situation?
Like proper advice rather than just don't get it. Just you do you. There's going to be a lot of people telling you what you should do and what's best for you, but they're not living with what you are. And that goes for the carers too. There's a thing I dub, it's like the active grief of someone still there. It's like your parents go through it, I've no doubt, where you just know your loved one's not going to have the future that you hoped. And it's totally different to a grief from losing someone. I can say that from firsthand experience. But it's just, be comfortable in your decision. Don't be forced into do anything. If you don't want to exercise, you don't have to exercise. The writing's on the wall, and you have that control. There's a lot you won't be able to control. Like any human, there's two worlds of control. Massive world of the uncontrollables and the little world of thoughts that you can control. That's it.
Yeah.
So you do you. Enjoy the journey. The destination, but the journey's far, far from over for you guys. And just hope you get good care.
All right, thanks for coming on, Jake, and having a chat to us about that. That was very insightful, and
thank you very much.
That was awesome, mate. Awesome. Happy.
Very much appreciated.
Happy to do it.
Guys, remember, Beyond Blue has given us the green light to offer their support, talking about some heavy topics, trying to shed a positive light and bring that perspective to it also. But if any of our podcasts bring up negative emotions and you feel like you might need some support, contact Beyond Blue on 1300 224 636 or go online to beyondblue.org.au and navigate the website to their online chats. Check on each other, and remember, it ain't weak to speak.
Yep, very important, guys. And coming up on our next podcast is one of my best mates, Josh Hayes. So Josh was at my 21st birthday party when I had my accident. So we'll be chatting to him about how confronting that was. We'll also delve into what it was like to watch a good friend's life dramatically change in an instant and the effect that that's had on his own life since.
Give us a look on the socials, guys. Help raise as much awareness as we can, so hopefully other people going through similar situations can find a bit of comfort, or just to bring perspective to those people we talk about that give too much power to the first world problems. So look us up, The Unaffected Podcast on Facebook, or look us up on Instagram via the unaffected_podcast. We'll also find the links in our bio to YouTube and TikTok. You can also reach us via email on theunaffectedpod@gmail.com. Hit us up via any of those links with feedback or questions you'd like us to ask any of our clients who've already been on, or for Nick's friend coming on next week.
And thanks for the messages we've already received, guys, of chatting about how this podcast has positively impacted you, and any other messages you might have for us, send them through. So appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks again, Jake.
Thanks, Jake.
Cheers, boys.
Bye.